To explain how you can provide a great digital experience for your customers, we have with us today Sushil Kumar, Senior Vice President, Product Strategy and Management, CA Technologies. Sushil is responsible for driving product strategy and business development for CA's Agile Operations portfolio. And in this role, he defines the overall product vision and roadmap for CA's end-user monitoring, application performance management, and infrastructure management products. So over to you, Sushil.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I know, actually, I'm the last speaker between you and lunch, so I'll really try to keep it short. Now, enough has been said about why user experience matters. And yesterday we saw many definitions of what digital transformation means. To me, it boils to something simple. When the business becomes user experience centric, when you differentiate your offering not based on price, not based on functionality, but the user experience, that's a clear sign that you are really heading toward digital transformation. I'm going to skip these slides. So I think this slide kind of speaks for itself. That you live in a world today where people select one product over other, not based on how many features you provide or necessarily the price point. It's the delight factor, because everything is getting consumerized. I mean, gone was the day where the consumer usability was seen one way and that the business applications were seen the other way. Everything, there's a convergence building. You expect the same ease of use when you deal with your bank as when you deal with your consumer devices, right? So clearly this is important. But how do you go about managing customer experience? I mean, that's the fundamental question that we all need to ask. We all agree customer experience is important. But then what do we do about it? Maybe I'll just take a pause here because you have heard enough people speaking from here. I'd just like to get some thoughts from the audience. I mean, if you're asked a simple question, if you agree that customer experience is important, how do we go about managing customer experience? Especially for people who doing day in and day out, you CIOs, you live this world a lot more on a day-to-day basis than any one of us do. Any thoughts? Or maybe how are you managing your customer experience today? Is it just about building a great product and hoping that the product works? Is it about running surveys? Well, sorry, go ahead. Absolutely. I think that's spot on. That you have to live the user experience for yourself. Which also means that you have to know what users are going through even before users, without relying on users to call you. I mean, today, all of us are part of a business, but we are also consumers. And when we try an app, and we spend more than a few minutes fiddling around with it, what do? We just give up on that. We don't call that company necessarily. Calling is a hassle. So the first and foremost thing is, as a business, we have to remember something very basic. You cannot manage something that you cannot measure. So you have to measure customer experience, but that too in a proactive manner. That means you should know about what a customer is going through before the customer has the need to call you. So can you have a detail about each and every customer experience, how long a page took to load, what were the different navigation that they tried? You have to have that information. And you have to have that information for every single interaction. The old traditional way of, either running a survey or periodically asking, going to and talking to people is just not adequate, right? We are in 24/7 business. So this needs to happen automatically. Now, given that we are digital, the supply chain is now digital, in order to do that, after you have done that, should there be a problem, it's not enough to know that there is a problem. You need to be able to quickly get to the root cause of the problem and then fix it. Because while the longer it takes for you to figure out where the problem is, the longer your customer is suffering. But then we live in a data-driven world. A biggest challenge that we have is there is so much of data that we need to collect. We just cannot have enough people that can manually keep on looking at the dashboards or even the user feedback. That data needs to be automatically analyzed and insights generated from that. This is the approach. And again, this is our, but I strongly believe that this is a very common sense blueprint. Whether it's CA's product, whether it's anybody else's product, you have to follow these basic tenets in order to be able to manage customer experience. And from our part, what we are contributing to this is, as a reference implementation for these ideas, to give you a starting point to evaluate, we have launched our own SaaS-based product. It's called Digital Experience Insight, where we exactly bring the three pillars together. It's a unified platform where we do omni-channel user experience management. And by omni-channel, this is important. Mobile, web, even APIs. You have to be able to connect a 360-degree view across all these channels. And then that needs to be integrated with your insight into your application and infrastructure. This is another folly that I have seen a lot of organizations making. I mean, starting with my own IT world, in the past, we used to buy a server management tool, a network management tool, so on and so forth. Now we all appreciate the need of integration. But I still see a disconnect on the business side and the IT side. People use business intelligence products that tells them what the problem is. But then oftentimes between that and the way digital services are run, there is a big gap. And if you truly want to become a digitally driven business, that gap needs to go away. Otherwise, we will all be spending our time disputing the data, disputing the finding, pointing fingers at each other. This is what you need to have. And the reason I draw this picture is that this picture, as it is, looks very complicated, but it's very representative of what you have in your environment. But now going forward, this picture is only going to get more complicated because you will have microservices-based applications. So all of a sudden, 4 of these pictures will need to integrate with each other to service a single user request. So clearly, I think this is now such a vital part of your business and such a complicated part of business. Doing piecemeal approach of just keeping a tab or just making sure that the app server is up and hopefully the users are happy is simply not going to work. It's a ticking time bomb. Now, the way, in order to solve that problem, and this is what we are doing, which is you have to essentially go and revisit how the digital operations are run. Take, for example, application performance management. It is not one of the things that is only reserved after the application is deployed in production. The reason we are in the world of continuous delivery is that because you have to iterate. It is not just because we have to deliver a new feature every day, because we have to incorporate user feedback. And that means everything that we conventionally thought we'll do only after application is deployed in the production now needs to happen throughout the dev cycle. So to me, continuous delivery is continuous monitoring, continuous testing, and continuous build. Similarly, I think there has never been a time where networks have played a more vital role in your user experience. And never. Today, when you click on your mobile app, it goes through the wireless carrier, maybe be routed through a traditional network, going through a software-defined network, and eventually by SD-WAN. So why a page took 3 seconds longer during a peak hour? Either people will give up or they will simply not ever have a solution. When you are relying on business, when you are counting on that business to happen, you simply cannot take that chance. And all of that data then needs to be correlated and unified. And then that makes it a completely analytics problem. That you have to take all the pieces of puzzle, the conventional performance metric and alarm, but now you also have to look at the information that you get from the user's endpoint. Marry that with a wealth of information that is reside into often overlooked component called logs. But then, as I said, there's so much of data. What do you do with that data? You know, the reason big data is interesting today is not that big data has been created today. That all of this piece of data was always around. We just couldn't harness it. And that's what needs to happen thanks to the availability of a lot of open source big data solutions, more economical prices of compute and storage and memory. Now it's possible. You have to take all of this information, every piece of information, you have to store, correlate, analyze, and then on top of that, algorithm needs to be built to derive actionable insights. But the important thing is, the main way that is different from what we have done in the past is that this needs to unify the world of operations and business world. That means the same platform needs to provide visibility to your operational people as well as business people. So if a product manager sees a new digital offering not performing the way it was expected, there shouldn't be a finger pointing. You should be able to see the complete supply chain and exactly agree on where the bottlenecks are so that it can be fixed right away. And that could either be infrastructure, that could either be code, or that could be application design, or it may be that the business offer itself needs to go through a change. And that's what the customer experience requires. The reason you have to do that is, this is where you have to take the conventional world of application infrastructure monitoring, marry that with user behavior and experience and analytics to give you these kind of visibility into the user journey that helps you understand what users are doing. It helps you design for experience. This is a very important part. If you put an application on App Store, the 5-star rating is not simply because your application doesn't crash. It's also because are users finding it useful? Are they finding it intuitive? So unless you have that behavior and insights, how else do you iterate? If your developers don't know, if your application designer don't know which flows are popular, which are not, there's no way for you to improve applications. Yes, you will keep on fixing bugs and your software will be better in quality, but it won't necessarily move the needle for business. And in order to do that, you have to start with this kind of a view, a proactive view. As the digital leaders, we need to be able to answer upfront without asking anyone who our users are, where they are coming from, right? So in this picture, for example, let's see if is there a laser? Okay. So in this picture, for example, here, what you see is how many sessions. This geo map tells you where your users are coming from. This is where you get to see, the average latency, drop off. It's extremely important that you proactively have this kind of information. And without this, to me, it seems like you're driving, somewhat blind. From there, you need to be able to go and look into the buyer's journey or the user's journey. So what you see here is a screenshot of an application. You see the heat map. Then you see what are the screens that the user actually navigated. And I don't know if you can see from the back, those 3 color-coded blue, orange, and red, they signify how many times the screen was involved, whether there were any crashes reported on that. Right? It's like this wealth of information that you need to have on your fingertips to even have the foundation to be able to manage monitor experience. And then heat map, crashes that I talked about, right? And from that point, Granted, there will be problem at times. And oftentimes I see people saying, we somehow have that level of visibility, but we don't know. Once we see the problem, for example, we see that session rate all of a sudden dropped at 2 p.m. in the night. We don't know what to do because the errors are somewhere there. But how do we just link it, right? So how do you take the next step? And that's where you need unified visibility. You need exact visibility into what happened. This is maybe something that your technical engineers need, but now you see, look at the seamless transition. From a business point of view, you're able to see the business traffic, and now you are seamlessly able to drill down to see under the hood what is going on. And from there, visibility into the transaction trace or infrastructure. But again, the time and again I've been saying there's a lot of information out there. So these pretty pictures are good. I'm sure all of us as techies like it. But when the crunch time, when a problem happens, you are under the gun, you really want to go and find out the cause quickly and fix it. And that's where I think the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning is really critical, right? And in our solution, that's what we are doing, right? Which is kind of looking ahead. So in this case, we look at the user response time, and we project the future trajectory of that, and we are going to tell you proactively 6 hours ahead of time if your application is likely to go breach SLA. Now that's a much more actionable information rather than me telling you after the breach has happened. It's almost like somebody coming and tell you after the bank robbery has happened and happened. Okay, good. It's better that you know than not know, but there's nothing that you can do about it. Similarly here, being able to take all the pieces of information and automatically do root cause analysis. So that now you have all the information, you can look at it, but if you don't, the system has already done the analysis for you. It has already found the component that it suspects to be culprit. It gives you a very tangible starting point that will help you reduce the time to resolution. And then, of course, nothing runs in vacuum, right? Everything runs on infrastructure. We all have to be conscious of cost. So on one hand, we need to spend whatever it takes to deliver the user experience that we all want, but at the same time, you have to watch for the bottom line, right? So managing the infrastructure quality as well as efficiency is really the key, right? So all of this is good, right? I think this is good, but I think our users and your users actually, especially the business stakeholder, expect even more. This is a good starting point. We started with the end user view and then cross-tier analysis to application and infrastructure, but then this is what people actually want. And the reason why it is important, so what you see in this view is a complete, I'm not sure if you can see that screenshot from back there, but I'll read it out for you. What this screen shows you is, depending on which kind of business you are in, the number of users logging in. It gives you some idea of the user segmentation. And that segmentation could be something like technical, how many people are using browsers versus mobile app, but it could also be a demographic segmentation, geographic segmentation. What you see here is conversion, call volumes, so on and so forth, right? Now, this information you may be used to seeing from a BI system. And the BI, one of the frustration that I have as a business exec, and I'm sure some of you share that also, is these BI systems reports are always stale. You're looking, because the time it takes for you to move the data, transform the data, clean the data, generate the report, right? But in a world where everything is getting done digitally, how quickly you can get to that information is really the key. We all talk about dynamic pricing, on-the-spot offers. So the goal here is that now that we have our tentacles into every aspect of digital supply chain, can we create a real-time view for the business stakeholders as well? And from there, you get down to business KPIs. A lot of people will not even think of this as some kind of application monitoring. Because what you are looking at the business KPIs, conversion, revenue, end user, stickiness, retention, channel preference. And then you can add as many KPIs as you want. But this view itself is not interesting. What is more interesting is from here, seamlessly drill down to any layer. It's like peeling the layer of onion to be able to get to that. Your best and worst KPIs. User journey. This is extremely important. How do people navigate around? Where do we abandon, let's say, something like a shopping cart? Unless you have this kind of information, again, I apologize for the screen resolution. If you could see the screen, what you'll see here is that for a fictitious banking app, in this user journey, when we double click on that, we actually see the business payload which sells which segment of customer. Was it a premium customer? Was it a gold customer? Those of you who are running bank, this is again example of a loan application. What rate was offered to them? Did they come through call center or did they come through web channels? All of that information is available in your fingertips, right? And then from there going down to the page and heat maps, right? It is this level, it is this approach to managing digital experience, which has to be holistic, which has to start with user experience, which has to put users at the center of it, right? And most importantly, for people, enablers like us, it has to be able to put ourselves into their shoes. It's only an approach like that that can help you truly manage customer experience, right? So with all humility, this is our view of the world. But like I said, to the best of my wisdom, it seems like a very common sense approach, right? But I don't know how much time we have left, but love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments. But mostly, like to just get your thoughts on where do you think your company stands? How practical do you think these approaches are? Or if there is any aspect of user experience management that we may have missed. Looks like people are really hungry. Okay, thank you everyone. I'll be around, so Ken, please come by and let's continue the conversation. Thank you.